Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We warmly welcome you all to session 2 of this conference.
Welcome back, everyone. We hope you had a refreshing break and a lunch that didn't make you too sleepy. Because what we got lined up this afternoon, is nothing short of exciting. If the morning was all about planting seeds of thoughts, this afternoon is growing those ideas into something more greater. Across industries, across borders, and beyond boundaries.
Exactly. And before we kick things off again, let's just take a moment to appreciate the energy and the insights from this morning session. The minds we heard from today, wow.
Right. If the morning was a journey through innovation and insight, this afternoon is about momentum, the mindset transformation in a full swing.
And speaking of momentum, Hamid, I think it's time to set the tone for the second half. Let's reignite that energy in the room. So, on the count of 3, I want everyone to give a big cheer for the rest of the conference. Are you all ready?
3.
Guys, are you all ready?
3,
2, 1, make noise.
I believe we can do it some more better than that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give another shot. Show some energy, guys.
3, 2, 1.
That's what we love here. Let's channel that energy into the next set of events. Because every session this afternoon is designed to break barriers, spark thoughts, and push us forward together.
And as we continue this journey of growth and transformation, we invite you to open minds, take notes, and most importantly, enjoy what's coming next.
Welcome back to 39th International CA Student Conference 2025, where mindset meets possibilities and boundaries simply don't exist. Okay, Dilki, prior to dive in, shall we have a small introduction of ourselves?
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin the main segment of today's event, let me introduce my co-host. He is currently a senior executive APO at SCB Corporate, managing outsourced accounting operations. He is also pursuing a degree in business analytics at SAP campus of CA Sri Lanka, a corporate level student at CA Sri Lanka, and an AAT pass finalist. Additionally, he serves as the Vice President membership of the CA Sri Lanka Gavel Club and is an active member in the CA Student Society and the Association of Business Analytics at SAP campus. Please join me in welcoming my co-host for the afternoon, Hamid Zaruk.
Thank you, Dilki. And now, allow me to introduce the brilliant personality standing beside me. She's a corporate level student of CA Sri Lanka, a proud representative from Moa Iyer, and she's also serving as a social secretary of our student society. Beyond the numbers and audit, she's a true social butterfly who is passionate about traveling, comparing, and sports. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for this stunning Dilki Samarajiva. All right now, it's time to spark some intellectual energy in the room.
Our first session this afternoon is a keynote address from someone who's inspiring and innovative, a name that resonates in inspiration across generations.
He started his education in Holloway Primary School in India, and thereafter he joined Ananda College, Colombo, where he later held the position of Deputy Head Prefect in 1995, and was decorated as the President Scout of Scout Troop in 1994. After his secondary education in Ananda College, Colombo, he completed his degree and obtained BSc Honours in Business from Manchester Metropolitan University, UK.
A classical pianist, saxophone player, and a trained Western classical singer under Marianne David. After embarking on the first album with Santosh Veeraman, BNS was instrumental in changing the landscape of Sri Lankan music entertainment industry to where it is today. Apart from the success in the music that we all know, they are co-founder directors of a group of 12 companies which has influence in 360 degrees of Sri Lankan entertainment and advertising landscape.
He is also currently an honorary director of Association of Authors, Composer and Publishers Organization of Sri Lanka, involved in implementing intellectual property regulation mechanism in Sri Lanka. And he is also a member of EXCO of Event Management Association of Sri Lanka.
Here, to share some insight of their story, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and welcome Mr. Bhathiya Jayakodi.
Hi guys, can I get this mic on this, please? මට මේක දානවද මෙතන monitors වලට පොඩ්ඩක්. Right, thanks. Good afternoon to you guys. People from Sri Lanka, you guys know me, and for those of you who have come from other countries from the SAARC region, I'll just give a brief introduction about myself. I'm one half of a Sri Lankan, I would put it like this, a Sri Lankan duo who has over 15 kind of studio albums and hits. And my friends from your region are the kinds of people like Sonu Nigam, Asha Bhosle, Arijit Singh, and whenever they come to Sri Lanka, they work with us, and we do a lot of work with them in this, in Sri Lanka, and also we were signed to Sony Music, and we were signed to Universal, and now we own our own label, and we do a lot of work in the region. And I was just also at a kind of a forum with the Indian Copyright Board, which is here in Sri Lanka at the moment. So that's a small introduction about who I am, because this photograph, that's not me. I don't generally wear suits. I generally prefer to wear, a pair of jeans and a t-shirt or something like that, and then go to any sort of event. So that's about me. And for you guys, I'm going to share the story of BNS, because I was told many big phrases. I was told, when they called me, I said, what do I have to speak about? Oh, this year is all about Industry 4.0. Some countries are now going towards 5.0. And then I realized that I was from 3.0, I guess, at my time. So I was like, okay. And then I heard the whole story, but there was a little bit of a thing that really connected with me was when I heard all these stories. I'm just going to turn this to my way because I can hear an echo. Make a තව monitors වල up කරන්න. Because I'm hearing an echo and it's a bit hard to talk. Yeah, thank you. So, where our story begins is a very interesting place. Advancement of the online age, advancement of AI, but it happened not only in our time, it happened during our fathers' times, it happened during the, the first industrial revolution, right? The problem is the same, but it comes in different formats. The problem is the same. So one thing that I can share as a teenager from the late 80s and the early 90s with you is, being around for some time, I realized that all these terms that you give to certain changes happening around you is irrelevant. Because I firmly believe that, right? Okay, as a chartered accountants who are very bad accountants, or chartered accountants, or any other thing, who have passed accountancy, But I know there are certain guys in my office who have done a completely different subject, but they can see numbers. You give them any Excel sheet, they'll be like, we are going to crash in 3 months. We have a problem here, we have a problem here, we have a problem here. How does that happen? That's because you understand the mechanism of something. That's how you have never played cricket, but you go to the ground, you take a bat, and you start seeing the whole process. That's how you go and, you study to become an engineer or a doctor or something, and you turn out to be the best creative painter. That's how you go to the university. That's how, as in, if you don't understand it, you can go to the best creative university in the world and be the worst, guy who does that particular subject. So, don't try to understand Industry 4.0, Industry 3.0, whatever, like that. Understand the change factors. Understand your environment. Understand what's going around you. And this is the story I'm going to share with you, the BNS story. So, just like you guys, I used to come from a very traditional kind of a family who taught me, okay, go to school, pass your O-levels, pass your A-levels, do some nice extra activities, but those are extra activities, right? That's just, and then go to university, get a degree, and I did all those things. I was a very good student. I passed all my exams. I went to university. I got a degree and did all that. And I got a top-notch job at a corporate, at a blue-chip corporate. A very, very top job, because all my immediate junior batch is right now regional CEOs at a big group called BAT. Right? So if I was there, I would have also been there. Got all those things, but my heart always said, there's something else which is there for you. And most of my friends were like, we have to start a business, we have to start something. Everybody was thinking about how to make money or how to go up the corporate ladder. When we, myself and Santosh, both of us, we actually found a purpose. See, the best brands, the best products in the world are built with purpose. At that time, I didn't know it was purpose, but now I can turn back and tell you the story. So what happened was, we were the teenagers of the late 80s and the early 90s. This was when this whole region, including India, Nepal, all those places, were going through a lot of transformation. A lot of global companies had come into those countries in terms of arts and culture. So you saw people like Sony Music come in there, Universal Music, you've got a lot of things, and we were exposed to that. But Sri Lanka had stopped evolving after 1985. I clearly say that because Rukanta Gunatilaka, if you guys know, Rukanta Gunatilaka, I've seen Sri Lankans, of course, know. Rukanta Gunatilaka was the last line of those artists who kept innovating. We had a good mix. We had the cultural stuff, we had the traditional stuff, we had the real classical music from our side, where we had, people like Amaradeva Master, we had Victor Ratnayak, and then we had Clarence C.T. up to Rukanta. We had a good mix in this country, and suddenly this whole cultural thing, this whole extreme cultural thing started coming to our society, and in our industry, things stopped. Things were happening, but there was no innovation in it. So as teenagers, we suffered a lot. Imagine going to a party and a DJ playing songs from all the other countries except yours and being here. Right? A DJ doesn't play any of the Sri Lankan music at that time. Right? They played stuff coming from the West, and the closest thing that they could play for us to really enjoy was stuff coming from India, because India had just gone through that revolution with A.R. Rahman coming in during the mid-90s, and also there was a bit of a thing coming out from there. And we were feeling it. We were feeling it. Whenever we go out, we could showcase our food very proudly. When we go out of the country, when we go out to meet other universities, we can showcase our food, everything. But when the party starts, boom. You don't have any of your things to, because we had, and that was 1980s. But here we were in the 1990s. This was the time when, you saw people like Tupac, Eminem, like Backstreet Boys coming from the West. And there were so many stars from the regional area. So we were looking for a purpose, and one day, while studying music, and doing this, we thought, let's just do a song to be played at our parties. That was the whole spark. Hurry. So we took a beat, we took a DJ, we got all that done. And now I'm talking to you about y'all are talking about Industry 4.0. I'll tell you a very primitive thing of that at that time. So Sri Lanka had traditional studios working with equipment which was working on analog. And we had smaller studios working with the then, non-visual digital. So when I say right now, when you say digital, you have a kind of a UI to it, right? You have a UI and you have all the other things where you store all the digital data. That time, we were shifting from analog to digital. So everything was recorded and done in hard drives, but there was no screen to see it. There was like small little time-coded things like this, like what you see the clock here. You had a time code which you had to operate it like an analog thing. But we had a lot of digital equipment, and what we did was we went to the studio with where there was a producer called Ranga, and we said, shall we try to improvise with this? So there were little things we did. Say, for example, I asked, what is this? Okay, how many tracks can we record on this? He said 16. Is that all? Yes, 16. Why can't we afford those big mixers? Our economy can't afford that. That's only in USA, and maybe there is one console in India. So our economy is too small to afford it. So we're thinking, okay, with 16 tracks, how can you create a big sound? Then he says, okay, there is something called ghost tracks in this. Right? What's a ghost track? You can bounce these tracks to that, but you can't play it back and listen to it. You can just store it. So if we take 16 here, do a analog, do a manual mix onto it and bounce it onto a ghost track, 16 into 7 and back. Our brain started working on this. And then there was a sequencer. That was an early kind of a computer, which is now called a DAW, but it was an early kind of a thing. And we asked, so how many tracks are there? There's 128 MIDI tracks. Oh, so we can program 128 there and send it to this 16 and keep on doing that. This is how we got the sound of the first album. I didn't know anything about audio engineering. I was a trained classical pianist, did a lot of things. And that was the first album. And we matched that sound to whatever was coming out of the world. That was the first time that we matched that thing, and we created an entire album, and that was our first album. And when that first album came, now we didn't realize what we had done. We had entered the day and age of digital recording. We didn't even realize we had created the first. It was not a DAW, a digital audio workstation, but we had managed to, create something like that to create that sound for Sri Lanka. So once we created that sound, we had an album in our hand, and we started walking from record producer to record producer to record producer, and everybody said, come back in 5 years. This is not for now. This is for the next 5 years. So we can't take this. We can't invest in this. Even that was said to us by the radios. By all the radios, you know now, like Hiru Sirasa, everybody was there. They also started at that particular time. And they said, come back in 5 years. But there was one record producer. We went to one record producer, and he sat us down and he put the headphones, and after about 6 months of persuasion, he put the headphones on and he was listening, and he made a call, and Rukanta Gunatilaka walks up from the upstairs studio. He was doing a recording for his last album. He comes, puts the headphones on and says, Shah, make a maar lasana ini. Make a ganda. Kiyak hari deal hari make a ganda. Make a mara hit ekak wenwa tawa avrudu parking. So what he said was technically, buy this at any price, to that record producer, buy this at any price. This is going to be the next revolution. And this is when this whole thing happened. So the first album came, we didn't realize, we were like you guys, we were all about, doing our jobs, doing this, understanding. We didn't realize, because this was the first time that we were singing in Singlish. We had mixed English with Sinhala. That is how we talk. We don't talk in like complete Sinhala or Tamil. We don't talk in complete Tamil or Sinhala. You drop English words here and there. That's the culture now. That's the culture. So we brought that because we were not aiming to do anything. We just wanted to make some songs that a DJ would play at our parties. So that was the purpose. We had a purpose. We had a very strong purpose. And we went behind that purpose and we created an authentic product. And then we wore jeans. It was bigger pants. I'm glad that it's now again coming back into fashion, because it's easier for us to, we feel more comfortable in those pants than those really skinny jeans that we used to wear for the past 10 years. Right? So we came on stage like that. We spoke very authentically. And suddenly we realized this was a huge hit going to even the villagers. We get people who couldn't talk English or understand English, or, right, who couldn't associate themselves with the Western stuff. They were associating with this. Because it was coming, it was authentic. So we really hit a sweet spot, because we were going behind a purpose. We were going behind solving a problem that we had as youth. We sparked a big kind of a revolution, and this changed the entire landscape of the advertising industry. Most of you guys must have, been young, or you were not born at that time. I'm talking about 97. That time the advertising industry was clearly demarcated, saying English, Sinhala and Tamil. English, Sinhala and Tamil. But then suddenly all those lines blurred out. It became one platform. Advertising agencies started shifting their creatives to Singlish, Tanglish. Okay? It started, the whole landscape that you see now started evolving with that. And we were right in the epicenter of it. We were right in the epicenter. This was the time when TV and radio were hitting big time, even in the region, even in India. This was the time when Sony was coming in, like Sony's Hitmax was coming in, all the private TV stations were coming in, Sri Lanka, MTV was coming, Hiru, all those things were coming in at that time. We were in the epicenter and we had everything laid out to us on a platter to pick. Even the TV stations were using our format. Most of you know us now. By the time you guys got to know us, BNS, established brand, okay, have been there. But if you ask maybe your parents or your cousins who are much older to you, they'll tell you the cultural influence we had in the industry. It ran to every corner of media, every corner of advertising, every corner of entertainment. And these were just 21, 22-year-old kids. right? So you're not too young or too old any time to do something. But you have to have a purpose, right? To win any industry revolution, to win anything, there has to be a purpose. If you want to build a product, build a software, whatever, figure out a purpose. You need to figure out a genuine problem and go behind solving that problem, right? You will end up with a jackpot. But if you do it for the wrong purpose, if you drive behind the wrong purpose, you won't see any of these things. You will be just running behind, something for the wrong reasons. So from there, I'll quickly move on to the next stage of our career. Then we signed up with this thing, and then we were thinking, how can we sign up with Sony Music and Universal Music? Here we are, just about to hit 23. Now with big dreams, we started reading the closest office for Sony Music had just opened up in India at that time. And it was at a place called Andheri. Is there anybody from Andheri West? Andheri East? Mumbai? You're from Andheri West? Okay. So Sony office was in Andheri West. And that time there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there was no Instagram, there was no this thing, there was Yahoo search. And there was Hotmail. Right? So, and when you go and do a search, you don't get, you barely get anything out of it. So we had to read a lot of books and everything, and my father had to go to India for something, and I asked him, can you get me a contact? And he said, here is a contact. He gave me somebody's name called Kunal Das Gupta, Sony. And gave me an address, not in Andheri West, but in Andheri East. There was no C-Link at that time, by the way, my friend. So peak traffic, how long it takes to get from east to west. So here I am, a 23-year-old guy, and flying was very expensive at that time. Went to the closest point in India, took a train, went all the way to Mumbai, and it was like a movie. It was like that Slumdog Millionaire. You go and get down, and you don't know jack about the place, and you see a lot of people going like that. I held a hand to auto rickshaw, got into it, and went to the so-called Sony office. And I'm like, I go there, it's a house. Now I'm looking at it like this. This can't be Sony, but it says Sony. It just says Sony. It doesn't say music or anything. Walked in, there's nobody at the reception. It seemed to be a new office that people moved in. Went and opened the office. There was this big gentleman, Mr. Kunal Das Gupta. Yes, okay. And I went and told him, I pitched my whole story to him. I pitched our whole story to him. I spoke for half an hour, and after half an hour I said, oh my God, we just got the franchise for Sony TV in India. This is your Sony TV, the initial shareholding, one of the main guys. We just got this thing. So this is Sony TV. Sony Music is in the other side. And I'm like, oh God. And then I can very clearly remember he told me one thing. He said, I really admire this thing coming all the way from Sri Lanka and coming here with no appointment and just walking in. I said, okay. Took another auto rickshaw and went all the way there. Walked into Sony. And then the most executive comes and sits down, pitch him the entire story, and he says, okay, we'll call you. And I say, okay, thank you, and I come back. No call. Did this for 3 times, and here we were like, it's not going to work. What happens next? See now, this is a time when Sri Lanka had a very, very primitive entertainment industry. Right? As young people, we can see what you need to realize is you need to read a lot of things, you need to be in the game, and you need to start seeing how the entire dynamic and the mechanism is changing in your own industry. This is what people like, people who write books later on go and look, analyze, and put down in words and sell to you. Don't think that it's something that you can learn off books. You learn about something which has already happened. Even your industry 4.0 is something which has already happened. Right? No use looking at it like that. You need to realize the dynamic. You need to realize what is at play. It's like chess. You can learn chess off a book. But when you go to play, you need to see the plot. This is what has to happen. So this was the time we realized dynamic is going to change because the market was changing. Hotmail, then Google came out. Now here we were in the brink of everything like coming out. So we went to Sony Music thrice, and in 2001, there was Sri Lanka had a general election. And that time, the prime ministerial candidate, Anil Wickramasinghe, had called the chairman of Maharaja, and he has called the chairman of Maharaja and said, can you get Bati and Santosh for me to do my youth promotions? We were not interested in politics. So he told his CEO told the GM told the junior executive who was our age. And then we got a call and said, can you come and do this? We said, no. I can't say no to my GM. Can you tell no to him? He said, okay. He said no to the GM. I can't say no to my CEO. It's a personal request. Can you say no? Said no. Like that, we went up and we met Mr. Rajamahendran, who was like a media mogul in Sri Lanka. And then we said no to him, and he was like, I'm very proud of you young boys saying no. These fellows don't know to say no to me. And he was pointing out at his staff. And can I do something for you? He said, for some reason, we said we were going to Sony Music all the time, but we haven't been able to crack the top. Hold on. And then what happened? He called, somebody called Vijay Singh, who was the CEO that time at Sony. I can remember because I had gone through all the credentials of the Sony board. He called and said, Vijay, I have two of my friends, they are young boys, I want you to meet them personally with the board. And we immediately took a flight and went to India. And there was a guy from the board who came to take us to the boardroom. And I kid you not, 3 times we flew, and they were brain picking us to get to know the industry in Sri Lanka. And since we came from your kind of a background, we also made presentation after presentation, not creative presentations, but with our creatives being presented on one side, we gave them a complete presentation of the market. And then they were still not signing us up, and I asked, why aren't you signing us up? They gave us a proper insight. They said, for us, an artist is not a creative asset or anything. Artist is a product. We invest on regional products from all over the region, and we pick them into a pool, and we do a massive investment. And only 20% of those products really make it big in the world. And for us to cover our investment or break even, we need to go back to their home markets and make the revenue. And your country doesn't have proper copyright regulations, hence we cannot earn our revenue. So we were not listening to him, we were just seeing that whole, the plot going like this. We can see all this happening like this. And then we were like, okay, so your problem is the risk. So why don't you go for a franchise model then? You will be passing the risk to a local company. And that's how M Entertainment was born. So we were sent by Maharaja, and Maharaja got the Sony and the Universal licenses, and they became the franchisees. This is what I'm telling you. You need to see your problem like this. There is a wheel spinning, there is a brain in the middle, there is an arm like this. This is how you need to see it, not transform mindsets, transcending boundaries, industry 4.0. None of that's irrelevant. That's just some name that somebody calls this. So somebody can call this, some other name sometime later. So this is what you need to be doing all the time. Check for the core and see what makes it work. So the primary problem for Sony was risk. So we said, okay, pass the risk to somebody else. Oh, so then they came down, we had a big launch, we signed with Sony, rest was history. So that was our entry into the regional picture. Then coming to our corporate side. So the copyright laws were very, very weak in this country, and if you guys, like half of you would have been really small or not born, the war was at a peak, shows were being stopped halfway, explosions at the stations, war happening in the north, even in Colombo, there was bombings and a lot of things. One day there was a 3-month concert ban. There was no concerts, and we went for after 3 months when we started the concert, there was a old revered artist. We call him Sir. So I can't tell you any of the names. It's not nice, but he was there to perform late night. And I asked, so how is it, sir? I'll say it in English because there are people from other countries. Otherwise, I would have loved to say this in Sinhala because the story would have been more punchier. But I'll go ahead, the way I've been doing it up to now. So what happened was, he said, 3 months there were no shows. It was a bit of a hard, take on us. But now there are a lot of shows and I'm doing a lot of work. And I'm like, good God, this man is about 20 years older than my father. And he can do this. There must be something wrong. He has been singing for 50 years. He has been singing for 50 years of his career, and why does he have to do this? So that was the topic that we were talking about all the way from the show to, it was a faraway show, to Colombo. Again, it came down to no copyrights, hence activation is the only way we are going to make revenue. So we were very young, so either you have to lobby with the government and get involved in the government like what we are doing now, being part of the, the board which is responsible for changing the copyright acts and all at this age. But at that time, we were in our mid-20s, and that time was not a time that we could go and headbang. So then what we realized was, shall we go back to our corporate jobs and do this? No, we don't want to do that. We want to do this full time and make it into something really good. What did we do? We thought of another thing that we learned along the way, backward integration. Right? Backward integration is something that we talk about. What is backward integration? Does anyone know here about backward integration? Yes? No? Everybody is looking at me like this. Yes? Okay, so backward integration was a key thing. You integrate back into your own business. So what we did was, the first step was a very small step. What do we make? Songs. How does the composition happen? Okay, we get 20% on top as the two artists, and there is a cost for studio, Okay, the biggest part, the 40% goes to studio bills. Let's start a studio. So we start up a studio and we name it BNS, and we are working and we are very happy now. People are coming. After 2 months, we realize, we only get 4 or 5 jobs a month. We are doing good work. Why is that? When you start analyzing that, we realize, oh God, we call this BNS studio. That was the biggest blunder, because now only people who want BNS sound is coming here. But studio is a factory. Studio is not your creative place, is your mind. Studio is like a factory where you make clothes. You can make any brand on that line. The equipment, it doesn't say, this only makes Bhati and Santosh kind of music, or it makes some other kind of music. It's just equipment. That's how you use it. We took off the brand name BNS, Bhati and Santosh. We just deleted it off the board, took it out and called it SGM or Sargama, and then this place went from being 1 studio to 2 studios to 3 studios to 4 studios to 5 studios. Then we started applying this to our entire portfolio of things. To shoot our own videos, we started SGM Films. And now today, films is one of the biggest. Your Unilever, your all the big blue chip corporates, their ads through the ad agencies come from production. We produce dramas, we produce movies. And then we started a company called Showtown, to do our own shows, because at one point, I have 4 minutes, close to 5 minutes left, so I'm just going to make it quick. So at one point, we wanted to do the biggest show in Sri Lanka, and we were in 2005. We had our fourth album, which came out by the name of Netara. So the Netara show, we wanted to do the biggest thing, and when we drew the whole set. So our creatives don't start from any business. It's all on purpose and on dreams. So we take a sketch and we drew the entire concert set. This was prior to, any of the digital artwork coming in, right? So don't just look at me as if, why the hell are you drawing it, with hand when you've got so many software to do it. So it's just that we took a half sheet, laid it out, and we drew the entire stage. And we took it to an event company. All the event companies, I kid you not, at that time, they quoted us, I'm talking about 20 years ago, 1 million for the production alone. But at that time, the biggest show in the market was done by the Gypsies. Their own show that show was called I Don't Know Why. I Don't Know Why was they were selling it retail at 700,000 for the production. And then the second biggest show was done by the Marians. Marians were doing their show at 550,000, the production was marketed. So if we, the younger, the new boys, if we don't pitch it between 350 and 450, we would have never sold this in the market. However good we are, however popular we are. Popularity is irrelevant. You have to have a nice sweet spot for your pricing as well. So what did we do? We took a bunch of students from universities who were in their second year who wanted to do part-time. We put a team together and we bought all the stuff. We made all the sets and we made a plan so that we break even by doing 10 shows and we put the show in the market and that skyrocketed. We did 150 shows. Here, USA, Australia, Dubai, London. We just, that show really ripped it. So this is what I say. Don't think of all these fancy words. Don't think of any of these theories. Understand the mechanism of your environment. There's one more thing I'll tell you. Change. As and when you grow older, the hardest thing for you to do is accept that the world is changing. I have a clip on Reels where some people have said a lot of things to me because I said, I don't believe in the term old is gold. Why I don't believe in the term old is gold? Old is old. Old is good. But old is not gold. Old becomes gold to you because you lived that. You lived that moment. Anything when you live in that moment, it becomes now. This time period will be gold for you. Because you have your first girlfriend at this time. Your breakup happens at this time. I don't know whether it's a bit too late, but then, right? Your breakups happen at this time. Your first kiss happens at this time. With all that, you hear a nice tune and that becomes gold to you. Right? There's something else which is gold to me. And there's something else which is gold to my mother and my grandparents. So I don't believe old is gold. So that is the first thing you need to get away from to accept change. So I'll tell you a story. Can I take another 5 minutes? Okay. Because you gave me the stage late. Okay. Right? I'm just going to take another 5 minutes. What happened was our last album, 20th anniversary album, which came out in 2019. It was a big deal. We had a big show. We went around the world. We did about 100 concerts everywhere, as in concerts and little events for that everywhere in the world, including Sri Lanka. When the Obanisa album was supposed to come out in 2018, we were a big name. We had we were the brand ambassadors for big brands like Coca-Cola, to Dialogue, to Asus, to all these big brands. We had endorsed 52 brands by that time. 52 brands in the country for over And we were part of almost all of the biggest productions. And as I told you, we established our companies. We have 12 companies. I'm not going to go into that in detail because it'll take a longer time. 12 companies, everything was done, and most of the Sri Lankans know us. As in, anywhere you go, face is like an ID. But we were about to launch the album in 2018. We realized, hold on to the launch. We were big in Facebook, huge in Facebook, huge in all the old platforms, huge on TV. People knew us, but our Instagram was 10,000. YouTube also, we had about 12,000 subs. And we were like, good God, this is not working. We are known, we are big, brand is big, but where is the relevancy with the Gen Z? That time the Gen Z were the really young ones. Right now the really young ones are the Gen Alphas, and those Zs are you guys, I think, some of you, right? So where is the relevancy? So as to 42-year-old men at that time, this was a hard task for us. What we did was we paused the album, pushed it to 2019, got a set of young producers into the studio, gave them all the songs and said, keep our compositions and the core intact, but dismantle everything, reassemble it the way you want, and bring it back to us, so let's see. That was when a young producer called Asas came up with Rusara. Now, Rusara was the whole thing was a little bit trappy, and the whole thing was a little bit EDM, and that was not me. I come from the 90s. I'm a 90s kid, so I'm not going to sing that if it's not authentic. As I told you, every creation is authentic. So what I did was went home, called my daughter. Shall we create a playlist to go to school and come back? You put one of your songs, I put one of my songs. So she started putting Post Malone. At that time, I'm talking 6 years ago, Post Malone to BTS to all the new sounds, EDM, trap, everything was there in her list. And I put all my old songs like Backstreet Boys to Eminem, right? Right? Eminem, Snoop Dogg, right? Tupac, all those things were there. And then Rukanta, all those kind of, the Sri Lankan ones, everything was there. And that playlist played for almost 6 months. Home to school, school to home. Home to classes, classes back. The more I listened to it, I started understanding why my daughter enjoys that beat. The more I listened to it, my body started moving like her body moves. Right? The more I started listening to it, a little after 3 months, I kid you not, if you text me, if it's not formal like what you send me WhatsApp to coordinate this, if you text me on